DESIblitz.com.
First question, you became a monk a few years ago. What did you learn and what made you decide to lead that monk lifestyle?
Yeah, what I learned as a monk, I mean, there were several lessons, so many lessons, all of which obviously are in the book, but one of the biggest things I think I learned was adaptability and resilience. You know, when you're a monk, you sleep on the floor, you take cold showers, you live out of a gym locker, you're waking up every day at 4 a.m., you don't have a place that you sleep. Things change a lot every single day, and that adaptability and resilience and finding certainty in uncertainty through service was really interesting to me. We were always trying to find a way of trying to help someone else, and that gave a huge, unique perspective. And why I left was during my time as a monk, I came to the almost self-awareness and understanding that I wasn't meant to be a monk. I wanted to be in the world where I could share these ideas and messages, and that I really felt that I still loved media and I loved what was happening in the world, and I wanted to be involved in that but still be able to have an impact. And at the same time, a lot of my teachers said to me that they felt that I'd be able to share what I'd learned if I left. And you know, at that time when I left, I didn't know where I was going, so it wasn't excitement. It was almost like fear and anxiety and stress and pressure. And now when I look back, I'm so grateful that I joined. I'm so grateful that I left. But at the time, it was very difficult to go through.
So obviously, congratulations on writing the book. Was it that whole sharing experience that prompted you to actually write this book, to make sure that that message is actually amplified a lot further than what it is at the moment?
Yeah, when I started creating videos on social media around 4 years ago, and then when we launched the podcast On Purpose last year in February, I just started getting so many questions from people saying, Jay, when are you going to write a book? I want to understand more about your story. I want to understand more about your background. So there was just this massive influx of requests from my incredible community and audience who I'm so grateful to have. And for me, it was almost like I wanted to be able to share everything in one place. And the monk aspect of it is really the aspect that focuses on Eastern wisdom. So the book shares wisdom from all over the world, but primarily from texts that originate in India for the last 5,000 years. And to me, it was really important to place emphasis and give focus to those so that everyone in the world could access them, because they're truly universal, completely timeless, and relevant to everyone.
And obviously, with the situation that we're in at the moment with COVID, obviously lockdown everywhere, now is an excellent time to be releasing that kind of a book where, you know, people can find self-help. Just on that note, what do you think are some of the biggest difficulties facing Asian people today, especially during the pandemic that we're in?
I think probably one of the biggest challenges is always our own mind. You know, our mind creates so many challenges about like, oh, what about the future? Or what's going to happen to me tomorrow? Or, you know, what about my situation? And by the way, those are all very normal, valid feelings. And I think a lot of the time we think, oh no, I'm negative to think that. That's not true. It's actually useful to understand that. And in the book, I help you unpack and understand that feeling. So I'd say that's one of the big ones, worry or anxiety about the future. I think the second one that really comes to mind is a feeling of being stuck and not knowing where you're going and feeling like everything around you is crumbling. And this is so much more of a negativity and down and depressive feeling. Again, very normal and valid, and nothing that we should look down on or make people feel bad about. And I think this is a big challenge that I think we face in our community, that we need to make people more okay with self-help, more vulnerable, talking about mental health, more vulnerable and open to seeking therapy or coaching. I think it's really, really important in our lives that we're okay with allowing each other to express that we all have highs and lows. Like I mentioned, when I left the ashram, for me, that was a really low point in my self-esteem, in feeling depressed, and the closest I felt to that. And I think that it's scary to voice that sometimes, because you think, oh no, people will think I'm weak or I'm not strong. And I think that's probably the biggest thing in the pandemic, is realizing that being able to share how you feel is probably going to help you get out of it more than just keeping it pent up inside yourself.
Absolutely. I think obviously as a community, Asian people have always tended to not always be be willing to share and open up as some of the other communities already do. What do you think that is? And also, there's sometimes in the Asian communities, you know, there's a little bit of I'm better than you, or there's, you know, I want to get one, I was keeping up with the Joneses. We have a lot of that within the Asian communities. Do you feel that also plays its part? And also, is there a way that love can conquer hate?
Yeah, I think there's two sides to it. I think there's such a resilience in a lot of Asian communities as well. You know, like I know my parents have been through so much to give me the life and opportunity that I had growing up in London. And, you know, they've been through so much sacrifice and so much pain and so much, so much love and support for the kids, and to go through so much. And so they have a sense of resilience about it. And at the same time, I don't think anyone ever asked them how they felt. Like, I don't think anyone ever stopped to be like, hey, are you working too hard? Are you okay? Are you taking care of your mental health? And it's almost like we've got to be the generation that asks them that, asks ourselves that, and asks our children that, because they never had that, right? They didn't have parents who asked them that. They didn't have friends and family that asked them that. And so rather than sitting here and pointing fingers or blame at our parents, I think we've got to be the generation that goes, well, I'm going to make sure that my parents get asked that question and understand mental health. I'm going to ask myself that question, my spouse, my partner, and my children as well. And I think we can be the shifting generation.
Yeah, because I've always found there's lots of rules. You know, you can't do this, you can do that. You got to, you know, you go through college, you go to university, you get a nice job, you get married. You know, we have a lot of that obviously within the Asian culture.
Sure.
So you believe it's up to the next generation to change that thinking?
Yeah, I felt that pressure in my own way, whether it was extended family or friends in my own world growing up in London. You know, I was constantly in a competitive school, and I definitely felt that pressure as well. So for me to go off and become a monk was like, everyone was just like, you've literally just committed career suicide. Like the feedback I got from everyone was just like, you realize you will never get your life back on track again. Like this is crazy, especially after getting a degree and all the rest of it that I'd done in London. And so the kind of feedback I got was really negative. So me to go off and become a monk. And then when I came back 3 years later, everyone was like, what, you failed at being a monk? What are you going to do now? So it was almost like I'd proved everyone right. And so I felt so much anxiety, so much pressure that I felt like, oh my gosh, maybe I am going to fail at life because I made this big decision and it didn't work out. And maybe now, and then I got into a steady corporate job and I almost started to tick all the boxes of what the traditional aspect would have been. And then all of a sudden I have another crazy idea that I want to start creating content online to share these messages. And again, the same thing happened where so many people were like, you realize you're getting married next year. This is not a viable career. You realize you're getting old now. This is not a viable career. You should be thinking about buying a home and getting a mortgage. And then, you know, as I started to make that transition, I just realized that I had to take the risk and take the belief and confidence in myself, even sometimes when I didn't feel it, and I had to work really hard. But all I can say is that if something's aligned with your purpose and your talents and your skills, and you're willing to give it everything you've got, then you're going to be happy no matter what. And by the way, most people in the beginning are not going to understand you because it's also scary for them when someone breaks the mold and tries something new and it doesn't work. So if you're one of those people who's like, I want to be an artist, or I want to be a graphic designer, or I want to be a TV presenter, or I want to be a author, or I want to go and start a charity and help the world, or if I want to go and build schools, whatever it is you want to do, just remember that don't wait for someone to say, yes, that's what you should do. That's the right way to do it. Because that probably would never happen. And people only kind of believe you after you take a few steps.
And an ideal life for me is a life, and this applies to a company, an organization, an institution for me, is an ideal life is when we all have a head, a heart, and a hand, all three elements together, working in alignment. Without one or the other, we start to lose something. If you only have a head and a heart, you'll find that life is stable.
And define each of those.
Yeah, sure. So a head is the clarity of vision.
What you want.
What you want. Knowing what you want, the way you picture life, and being able to navigate and make the decisions to get there. That's a good head.
What would you say is the real meaning of life? What are we all here to do?
Yes, there's a beautiful, beautiful statement from Picasso, which I think summarizes what you just said right now. He said that the meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away. And in the book, Think Like a Monk, I break the book down into let go, grow, and give. And I think the goal of life, or the meaning of life, is to discover your talents, your skills, your passions, and not just stop there and become successful, but to use that in the service of other people, to offer that in a way that changes someone else's life. If you're a photographer, take pictures that transform the stories of people's lives. If you're an author, write stories and ideas that will transform people's hearts and minds. And if you're in the world of business, do it because you know the power that a business can have in someone's life as well. So any occupation, any skill, any talent can have a positive impact on people's lives.
Again, within Asian families, success is sometimes measured in how much wealth you have. Not for everybody, but wealth does play a large part of being an Asian and a British Asian. I've had that in my own life. But what would you say? What's real success? What's real success in life? And how have you tackled that within the book?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the book, I talk about two parts. I talk about success and I talk about happiness. And I also, more importantly than happiness, I think of purpose. But I think of them as two separate pursuits and two separate issues. And I think two separate parts. And I think the biggest issue is that we see them as correlated. So we think if I'm successful, I'll be happy. Or we think if I'm happy, I'll be successful. And the truth is, they're not connected in that way. Success is money, power, control, wealth, all of that stuff, awards, accolades, all that kind of stuff. That makes you feel successful, but that's not going to make you feel purposeful or joyful. And purpose or happiness is all about how you feel about what you do and you're offering in the world and what you think about yourself. That's where that purpose and happiness piece comes in. So for me, I see them as two separate things, and I realize that what I need to do to feel purposeful may not make me successful, and what I need to do to become successful may not make me feel purposeful. So stop trying to get them to mix and affect each other and figure out what you want and redefine those words for yourself.
Interesting.
What advice or counsel, just in general, would you give somebody who wants to live a better life?
The mistake we make is that we either act without thinking or we think without acting. If you're feeling stuck or you're like, I'm not sure what I'm doing right now, you're either doing too much thinking or you're doing too much acting. All you have to do is ask yourself, does this bring me alive? Why does it bring me alive? Really important to know why it works, and do I want to do it again?
What impact would you want to see in the world today, and what impact are you trying to make through all the things that you've done so far?
I think I'd just be really happy to see a world that is more compassionate, more non-judgmental, more responsible of trying to have the impact, take the responsibility for the growth. And that includes me too. I need to do all those things as well and become more compassionate and non-judgmental in my own ways. And I think that that's going to happen through entertainment and education working together. And so I imagine and visualize a world where, imagine every piece of content, whether it's TV, documentaries, movies, feature films, social media, whether it was comedy, drama, whatever genre it was, imagine it was made from a space of wanting to serve and help people. And it could be hilarious, it could be tragic, it could be dramatic, whatever you want it to be. But imagine if it was created with the intention that this is going to improve someone's life. And I think I look forward to that world because I really believe that entertainment and education have the biggest role to play in helping anyone and everyone get there.
Excellent. We'd love to support you with that passion and hopefully bring that through to you. Last question. Tell us about the 3 E's and what are your 3 E's?
Yeah, absolutely. So the 3 E's that I've spoke about before are element, energy, and environment. And in the book, I talk about how you can actually find your element. But your element is like your natural potential, your natural passion. When you feel you're in the zone, when you feel like you crush it. And everyone has that feeling, whether you see it in spoken word artists, you see it in musicians, you see it in rappers, you see it in singers and dancers, people who just free flow expressing. What's your element? that's a really important thing to find. And Sir Ken Robinson has a brilliant book on it called Finding Your Element. And there's another great book called Flow by, I always forget the author's name, but it's a book called Flow, which I recommend in that concept. The second is energy. And energy is about what kind of energy do you thrive in? Do you want a fast-paced energy? Are you someone who likes to work a bit more slower and patiently? Are you someone that wants to be surrounded by people, or are you someone that works better alone? It's really important to understand the energy of people that you like to have around you, because sometimes we think, oh, maybe I'm not strong enough because I don't flourish around certain people, or maybe I have a weakness because I can't keep up with them. But everyone's different, and it's really important to know your energy. And the final is environment. Do you work best in a noisy, busy environment? Do you like the city, the hustle and the bustle, or do you prefer the countryside? So when you start asking yourself these questions, you start to see where you're most productive, effective, like I said, in flow and in your element, as opposed to trying to fit into everyone else's expectation of element, environment, and energy. So my element is that I really believe that I'm just someone who loves to study and share. So my element where I feel most excited is when I'm reading, when I'm linking thoughts, when I'm experimenting, and when I get to share them. That's where I feel most of my element. My energy is I love working alone. I'm actually quite an introvert in my own personal life, where I love being alone. I can be alone with books and meditating for days, and think time would just fly by. And I love that kind of, like, I work alone in my office every day. It's my way of functioning. And then environment as well for me. I like environments that balance out my high energy. So I'm really focused and can be quite intense. So I like being in an environment that kind of helps me feel more grounded. Whereas if I'm in a city, so I lived in New York for 2 years, I found that me and New York together were like, that was a lot of busyness. So I consider myself quite intense and focused when I work, and determined. So I need an environment that just helps me ground down and balance that out.
Well, Jay, thank you for spending some time with us. Your energy is definitely infectious. I feel like going out and doing something now, so appreciate that. Best of luck with the book, and hopefully we'll catch up in person at some point.
Yeah, thanks, Eddie. Great questions as well, man. I'm so glad we discussed a lot of stuff about culture and tradition and taking responsibility. So thank you for going there, man. I appreciate it.
More than welcome, and good luck with it all.
Thanks, man. Take care.